Hello YouTube, Wolfman of Unlockable Content here, hitting you with a personal vlog because we are so excited. It's just a few weeks away and we are going to be live at J1Con. Links in the description below. I cannot begin to tell you how excited we are for this event. We are going to be paneling live, playing a game. It's going to be unveiled at the con, so you got to make sure that you're there to check it out. It's going to be an amazing weekend. We can't begin to describe how excited we are. Again, all the links to everything will be in the description below. But I wanted to hit you with a vlog because for those of you that might be new to Unlockable content, or you might be discovering us right there at the con, and you're going to be looking back and checking out some of these videos, I want to give you an idea of who I am. So I wanted to hit you with a top 5 list. I'm going to be doing one of these a week leading up to the con. That should be about three left. So for this first one, because I'm the movie guy of the channel, I wanted to hit you with my top 5 favorite movies. Now, that's a crazy list in my mind, because how do you narrow that down to your absolute favorites of anything? That's crazy. You know, I never understand how anybody can say that's my favorite, because that's just, how do you narrow that down? You know, what am I talking about? My top 5 favorite animated, my top 5 favorite black and white, my top 5 favorite documentary, horror, romantic comedy. How do I narrow it down to a single just favorite of anything? But I think I managed to come up with something of a list of a top 5 favorite films that I really are near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to share them with you and tell you about them and find out if maybe you agree, if you disagree, if they're on your list somewhere, if, you know, what do you think? Are they, maybe you think I'm crazy for liking these. You'll have to let me know in the description below after I tell you about them. So I think I'm going to start with where I think everything began for me. My earliest cinematic memory is Disney's Pinocchio, believe it or not. You know, they say that you don't really retain memories from when you're like 2 years old or younger. I can remember being shown family videos when I was a kid, and I don't know, maybe somehow it triggered something in my head. It's weird, maybe I'm just remembering those videos, but I feel like I can remember being like 2 years old and dancing around my living room to I Got No Strings. I mean, so Pinocchio was a big deal for me, and those movies are important, those early Disney classics. We've all got a strong memory, I'm sure, to one of those movies. And they're important for like cinematic history. They really matter. And think about it, I hang my head low in humility in the fact that it's been a while since I've really gone back and watched one of those early classic movies. So I gotta go back and check out Pinocchio again. I'm really curious to know what your earliest memories were, what your earliest movie memories are. For me, it's Pinocchio. It was a great movie. Disney has this amazing way to twist these dark stories that were still intended for children initially, but they were crazy as books, and twist them into these amazing family-friendly but still challenging for children stories. And Pinocchio is my earliest memory of movies. So number 1, number 5, however you want to, these are in no particular order. They're all top 5 important films to me, period. Pinocchio is the first one I'm talking about. So the next one, because I am the movie guy and how important movies are to me, I want to talk about a documentary called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. If you, like me, are a self-described cinephile, then you have to see this movie. It's incredible. When I was a kid, I remember being in like 6th or 7th grade, and I actually wrote a paper about the MPAA and Jack Valenti. And when I was a kid in middle school, loving movies the way I do, Jack Valenti was like a hero. I aspired to be this man. I thought working for the MPAA would be the greatest thing in the world. That had to be the greatest job. You got to watch movies, you got to decide what they were rated. That meant you got to decide who saw them. You got to decide their distribution and what theaters they. I mean, that sounded amazing. And then when I got older, I found this documentary. This Film Is Not Yet Rated. Talks about the dark, fascist, censoring mentality that the MPAA has, and it really changed a lot of things for me. I'll link in the description below. Nostalgia Critic did one of his little vlogs about G to PG, which was actually very good, and he really tackled the issue there, and there is one, because PG used to mean something. Parental guidance, that used to stand for something. You look back at the earliest films that were rated PG and what they got away with versus G rating. And then, if you look at the history, where PG-13 was invented, and that was an important slot that needed to be filled. But on this end, we have what the documentary is covering, R and NC-17 films. And you'll find, I'm not going to spoil what the documentary is covering if you haven't seen it, because it really is fascinating. But just the way that they seem to target certain demographics and certain subject matters within the films, and deciding how they get rated, and subsequently how this art, these pieces of art, are being censored and taken away from us. And it's a real shame. So this film is not yet rated. I highly recommend it. It is an amazing documentary and one of my favorites. So moving forward now to another film that really meant a lot to me when I was younger and I was kind of coming into my own, and it might surprise you, Fight Club. Yeah, I don't know, it's just, it resonated with me. This guy that is trying to find more out of life, and through his own warped, twisted mentality, he discovers almost enlightenment, and he really grows as a person. And that spoke to me as a teenager, because I had these warped mentalities, and I was a weird kid. Let's just be honest. Anybody that knew me growing up, it's true, guys. Let's be honest. I'm not picking on myself here. I had some weird point of views on things, and I was growing into my own, and I don't think I've changed too much. I mean, look where I am now. Look at what's behind me. I've got, the sword collection you guys have seen, and that's not an insult to anybody that's like me. We're all like-minded, and if you're like me, I think you're a weird dude too, I'm sure. So, Fight Club spoke to me in a lot of ways. It was deep, twisted, and I'm not talking about the book at all here. I'm just speaking strictly about the film. There was this anarchist way about it, in the belief that they were going to be doing something amazing through their warped sensibility. And that spoke to me when I was younger. And it stuck with me, and I love this movie. I love how intense it can be. I love how funny it can be. I love how thought-provoking it can be. Fight Club's the third movie on this list. I'm sure I can't be alone in thinking that Fight Club is an amazing film. So the next movie I'm going to talk about is another amazing comedy, and one that, in its warped way, really speaks to generations, and is a really powerful film, and sparks a lot of conversation. Blazing Saddles. I can never not laugh at this movie. It is really, when I talk about a top 5 favorite movies list, it is always on this list. This list may change and evolve over time, but I don't think I've ever not had Blazing Saddles on this list. Mel Brooks is a personal hero to me, and this movie is one of his greatest testaments and gifts to the world. My father, a big movie fan in his own way, introduced me to Mel Brooks. He tried to get me, his favorite film was The Producers, the same way that Blazing Saddles is to me. And it's just, this movie, it's almost like an early South Park. And what I mean by that is that no one was safe. Everyone got a shot, a jab taken at them equally, and every which way it's hilarious. And I'll tell you something, if you can find yourself, if you've got a black friend that's never seen Blazing Saddles, Just sit them down and watch them watch this movie. You will never see anyone laugh harder in your life. I can tell you a story from when I was in college. I got a group of friends together, and two of them were black guys, and we started watching this movie, and the first N-word is dropped, and they both turn and look at me, and they're like, "Lou, what are we watching?" And I'm like, just wait. And then Cleavon Little starts singing "I Get No Kick from Champagne," and I've never seen two people laugh harder in my life. I mean, this movie, it's really a marvel. And I know people talk about how it can't be remade, it can never be touched again, it stands alone. And Lindsay Ellis, if I remember correctly, she did a vlog on Mel Brooks and talked about this film, and she approached it about Mel Brooks being Jewish. And I remember I commented on that video that she did, thanking her for saying things that I've always thought, but I've admitted sometimes I struggle with speaking and getting the right words out, and she said things that I've thought and felt, and I thanked her for it. And she actually liked the comment, and she thanked me for my thank you. I think that made me feel really good. So I'll link that in the description below. But yeah, Blazing Saddles. Again, if you've never seen it, you have to see it. It's an amazing marvel of a movie, and don't watch it censored. Dear God, it shows up on TV sometimes. Like I think they play it on the Country Music Channel sometimes, just because it counts as a western. But don't watch it censored. Watch it in its purest form. It's uproariously hilarious. One of the best movies ever. And I will fight anybody that disagrees. I love this movie. So that's 4 down. What's number 1? A movie that you've probably never heard of. And if you have, I applaud you. And I think it's currently on Netflix. And every movie that I've brought up, I own in some form. Digital copy or a hard copy. I know I have a digital copy somewhere, but believe it or not, I don't have a hard copy of this film, and I kind of kick myself for it because this movie is... I have no words. It's called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Say that 5 times fast. It's a Terry Gilliam film, and for those of you that are cinephiles and know your stuff, that means that it's from the mind of a Monty Python. This movie shares something. Again, I still look to Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic. If we change the channel aside, Doug meant something to me as somebody that aspired to YouTube. So he's still important to me, and he talks about Brazil being one of his favorite films, and that's also another Terry Gilliam film. So there's kind of a correlation there. The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. How do you even describe this movie? Like I said, I think it's on Netflix currently, so if you get a chance to see it, sit down and watch it. It is really a spectacle. The cast is amazing. Tom Waits, Vern Troyer, I think Christopher Plummer, and contrary to popular belief, this was Heath Ledger's last film. This one, not The Dark Knight. The movie is dedicated to Heath Ledger. This was his last movie. And knowing that adds some weight to it, and it's really just... It's an incredible story. So what is this story that I keep talking about? It's hard to describe because there's just so much going on in this film. It's really kind of hard to pin down the narrative. It can take a couple of watches to really get. I mean, I know I didn't get it the first time either, but I was just so engrossed. The effects, there's a cheesiness to them, there's a fakeness to them, but that adds a level of charm to it also. And it looks big and beautiful. So the story is a man who believes that imagination at its purest is what sustains the universe. And he meets the devil, the devil himself, and they make a bet it's not true. That he argues with this man that the world doesn't need stories. It doesn't need imagination. It'll just go on regardless. And so they keep butting heads and making new bets. And this goes on for centuries. The man, he wins immortality from the devil. He wins youth. He wins powers. And they keep going back and forth, new bets. Sometimes the devil wins, sometimes he wins. And it's this fight for just imagination. The word is imagination, and it's just, this movie is full of it. And there's something, I'm not going to spoil the movie. There's a plot with the man's daughter and keeping her safe from the devil, and Heath Ledger might be a bad guy, maybe. It's it's a movie that makes you question yourself and creativity in general, and every time I see this movie, it gets me thinking about something new, and it really gets my brain cooking, and it's just, I could sit and talk about this movie for hours. So that top 5 list again: Pinocchio, Fight Club, Blazing Saddles, This Film Is Not Yet Rated, and The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. How many of them have you seen? How many of them do you like? Which ones are you going to see now on my recommendation? Please talk to me about them in the comments below. I want to get these conversations going. I love talking about these movies. I love talking about movies, period. And for those of you that might be wondering, why wasn't Citizen Kane on this list? Why wasn't Jaws? Why wasn't The Last Airbender? or Tommy Wiseau's The Room? For any of you that might ask me down below. Let's talk about those movies. Let's talk. Let's just talk, people. Let's get to know each other. Let's build community. Power to the fan base. We talk about that all the time on Unlockable content, and we're going to see you live at J1Con. Look up J1Con. Look up the schedule. Unlockable Live is on Friday, I believe, unless that changes sometime soon, but I haven't heard anything about it. We'll link everything down below, and let's watch some movies, folks. Take care.